Hello everybody and welcome to the Food Co-op Initiative webinar. Today we are going to talk about our seed grant program and tell you about the application process and take your questions about what you might need to know or have curiosity about to do the best possible application. I'm Stuart Reid. I'm the director here at Food Co-op Initiative. I'll be moderating this discussion today. Most of you know who we are. We're a nonprofit organization that serves the needs of food co-op startups across the United States, supported by donations from the USDA, from the Blooming Prairie Foundation, National Cooperative Grocers, National Cooperative Bank, the Howard Bowers Fund, and a few others. And I apologize if I didn't name your names. A lot of the food co-ops, the existing food co-ops, have been avid supporters of us as well, and we certainly thank them. I'm not going to spend too much time on introductions today. I'm going to dig right in, and let's just go right for it. We have been doing these seed grants since our organization first got started as a pilot project, and the goals of the program have not really changed. We have made the grants so that we can provide some development funding to organizations during the earlier times in the process of opening a co-op, when they still may not have strong cash flow and really need some extra help, some professional work. Looks like I skipped my introductions here. There's Jacqueline Hanna and Mary Wilburn, who work with me at Food Co-op Initiative. Jacqueline is going to be full-time in May as a food co-op development specialist, and Mary is almost full-time at St. Paul, helping me with just about everything. So if you have questions, you're probably going to catch Mary first, and today during the presentation, if you send her by email questions, she's going to feed them to me. Since we can't make everybody's voice live on this, it's a better way to do it, I guess. And if for some reason you're having trouble with email, you're welcome to try to call. If the line may be busy, since we only have one, but that's an option for you. So, all right, let's move on then. So I'm going to go over the grant program in just in general terms, talk about the documentation you need when you apply for one of our grants, and what we are going to look for when we review them to make decisions. I think that's most of it. We'll have some time for follow-up questions, question and answer, and this whole presentation is being recorded, so if you have questions later that you missed something or you want someone else in your organization to have a chance to see it, it will be on our YouTube channel. Okay. So I started to basically cover this a little bit ago, why we do it. So to provide some early stage development funding one of the things that you can do with that is to leverage your local investment. Since we do ask for the community to match the amount of the grant we give, you have the opportunity to raise money to make that match, and it's a nice little carrot. If we can raise this much money, we have this opportunity. Other organizations will also be favorably impressed to see that you've had grant money coming in from organizations. So you take advantage of the PR when that does happen. We give the grants as a recognition for co-ops that are doing really good organizing work. So that's something else that I often will encourage groups to share. You've got a grant from Food Co-op Initiative. It's highly competitive. It means something. We think you're doing a good job. And we want to encourage you to look at the 4 cornerstones in 3 stages development model. It's not a requirement for the grant. It's not going to be a problem for anybody to use, I don't believe, since it's just a framework to help you understand the development process and to really keep track of where you are as you move along. And finally, the grant program really helps us develop closer working relationships with the grant recipients. We do a site visit in person. We also will try to keep up with you on a monthly basis and check in, keep track of how you're doing, answer your questions, and give you a chance to talk to us on a regular basis as well. So we invest a lot of our energy in the grant award winners. So when you get a grant, there are some limitations. They're not real strict, but there are some limitations on how we want to see that being used. And when you write your grant application, you'll have a chance to explain how you think you'd like to see it used. Basically, we are asking that everybody who gets a grant also buy themselves a CGN membership. That's the Cooperative Grocers Network, and that gives you access to a library of information, to some discussion forums, including at least one that's specifically for food co-op startups. And it gets you, I believe, 3 subscriptions to the Cooperative Grocer magazine as part of the package. We feel that that's a good value, and it really, in order to encourage people to join up and be part of the bigger community, we're asking that you include that in your proposal. We're also asking that you include attendance at either the CCMA conference, the Consumer Cooperative Management Association, or Up and Running conference. And you can send 1 person, you can send 2 people, you can send your whole steering committee. That's up to you. If you can put in as much into that budget as you want, as long as it is in the budget. 1 person at least, we ask, will be going to one of those 2 conferences. You don't have to go to both, but one of them. The CCMA conference is almost always held in early to mid-June, and the Up and Running conference next year will be in March. It's held in Bloomington, Indiana. I don't know where CCMA will be next year yet. You can ask us about that, and we'll keep it posted on our website as well. So that leaves you with anywhere between about, say, $9,000 or a little less after you cover the first 2 items. That's up to you. We do recommend strongly that you use it for professional services, things that cost quite a bit of money that you may not have readily available to you right now, and get the professional support in areas where you really need it. Market studies, feasibility studies, financial pro formas are very popular uses for this grant, and ones that we like to see. Legal services, the Cooperative Board Leadership Development Program that CDS Consulting offers are options. There are other things as well. If you're not sure whether what you're thinking of is reasonable, send us a note. We'll be happy to go over it with you. Included in your grant, as I mentioned before, is a site visit, and so you can ask for less than $10,000. That's the maximum. Whatever you ask for and are awarded does have to be matched by money raised in your community, and that does need to be cash, not in-kind donations. It does not have to be all in the bank at the time that you apply, however. You have to have the money available before you expend the grant funds. And so we'll need evidence of that when you ask for your first draw. Okay. So the timeline for the program. Right now is the webinar. That's the top of the list. There's about a little over 3 weeks before the application deadline on May 15th. We do ask that those applications come in by email because we can share them more easily. We'll be notifying people about 2 weeks later, and that May 29th date is our best estimate. It may be a couple days more or less, but around the end of May. We hope to be able to have the final grant agreements signed off a week later and be ready for public announcements around June 12th, which also coincides with this year's CCMA conference. We want to be able to tell people there who the winners were. So that's about what we've got going. When you do get an award, you've got 12 months that we would like to see you use the funds, and that should be enough. If for some reason you need an extension, we can work with you on it. But your proposal should involve projects that you expect to complete within the next year. Specific requirements that we do require, these are our requirements. You have to be able to say yes to these, and in order to be considered eligible. We need you to be incorporated. Now, I've had questions from co-ops that are almost incorporated or getting ready to incorporate. The most I can bend the rule on that is that the incorporation has to be in place before a grant could be awarded, any of the cash could be awarded. I'll let you, if you know that you're incorporating very soon, we'll accept your application, but we need that to be completed promptly. It's one of the ways that we ensure that our grant money is only going to legitimate co-ops. You need to be working toward a retail storefront. We definitely support other ways of getting food to people. Love to see great buying clubs, CSAs, farmers markets, food hubs, community kitchens, wonderful stuff. But this grant program is for retail storefronts. So if you're thinking of a different kind of project, the answer is we probably can't do it for you. I already mentioned the matching dollars. That is the money you have to raise to match our grant. You have to have uses for the grant money that we consider appropriate. And again, we'll work with you on that. If you have ideas and aren't sure, talk to us ahead of time. If we get a grant application from someone that we think deserves a grant, but we have some problems with one or two of the proposed uses, we'll talk to you about it. We won't just throw it away. So do your best to come up with good ones, and we'll work with you if we need to make sure that it's something that we both like. And the grant money that you receive is for activities that you're going to do after you receive the award. It can't be used to pay for something that you've already done. Okay? So we've done this intentionally online as much as possible and try to keep everything reasonably simple and in one place. If you go to our website, you will see right on the front page the Loans and Grants tab. If you click that, there'll be a link for the application. And no need to copy this down or anything. It's there on the website and a lot easier than trying to get all the numbers and symbols in the right place. So if you have any trouble at all finding it, again, contact us. We'll help you. We'll help you. But it's pretty easy. I walked myself through it just yesterday to make sure. And what you'll get when you go there is, go ahead and I think we're on the next slide. Yeah, I guess not. Okay. What you'll get when you go there is 2 or 3 pages of information about the grant program, some of what I've told you today, and details on the application process, and a link for 2 or 3 other things. You'll get there's a link to the online application, and we need you to fill that out as an online form. Don't print it out. Fill it out right there on the computer and hit the submit button at the bottom. That's the basic information for the grant right there. Have your contact information, how you propose to use the money, those kinds of things. It's fairly short and simple. If you've prepared ahead of time, then you can just go in and fill it out. There's a link to a race and ethnicity form, and I need to explain this a wee bit because this is something, about half of the money we get for this grant program comes from the USDA. They require that we collect this information. However, the form that they give us to use is designed for an individual to fill out, not for an organization like a co-op. So what I suggest when you see that form and it asks you what is your race, rather than saying, well, I don't know, I mean, we've got all kinds of people in our co-op, approximate, just best guess. We're not asking for you to go do a demographic survey, but estimate what the percentage of people in your cooperative or your community, if you don't have a lot of members yet, would be white, ethnically black, from a Hispanic origin, or whatever else the form asks for. Just put a percentage of what you think is accurate, and that's all we need. So then there's a certain amount of documentation that we ask for, including those articles of incorporation and a few other things which I'll get to. All of that should be scanned somehow, if you have to do it by taking a picture and loading it onto email, I can accept that as long as it's legible, but ideally try to scan your documents and send them as one package to us by email. And that really does save us a lot of time and energy because we're sharing those documents amongst all of our staff to do the review process. So, all right. This is the documentation that we're going to be looking for. We do need the articles and bylaws. If you've incorporated but have not filed bylaws yet, we will accept just the articles. We need you to give us a sources and uses budget. And if you don't know what that is yet, it is a planning budget for the organizing effort. How much money are you going to need to cover all of the costs of starting your co-op, broken down by large categories? And where are you going to get that money? That's the sources, of course. And it's possible using the template that we have. A link is on the application document itself. You can use that template, and all you have to really put in, or all you really have to know, is an approximate store size, and a lot of the rest will calculate out based on standard benchmarks. Now, if you've done your own already, by all means, we'd prefer to have one that you've custom made and thought about. But if you haven't, take a look at that template and just do the best you can with it. We know it's going to be a rough estimate, and we expect that it will change with time. But it helps us to understand what kind of a budget you have and whether your plans are realistic. It also helps you to think about your budget going forward. We'd like to see a very brief description of who your board members are and contact information. Name, email address is fine. Phone number, optional, but we would like to have that for the primary contacts at least. And the bios can be very short. We don't want a life history. We just want to know how come you're working on this co-op? What are your interests and what is your role? And then a very brief overview of what you've already done. So work to date. And again, that shouldn't be more than a page or two. We don't need a detailed description of every project along the way, but we do need to know that you've started recruiting members, that you've had a market study, whatever those things are. Optionally, and they are optional, they won't count against you if you do not submit them, but if it helps us to see that you're a very strong candidate for a successful co-op, you might wish to include these. A business plan if you've done one, a feasibility or market study, and if you have a professional market study, you would only really need to send us the executive summary. We don't need all of the detail, but you're welcome to send either. If you've done financial projections for your store's performance after it opens, usually they're called financial pro formas. They're budgets for the future store. We'd like to see those, even if they're still preliminary or rough, just to see, again, where are you thinking, where are you going. And if you've made timelines or work plans for your group or for the public, those are also nice for us to see. I'll be honest with you, not only do we use this to document your application, these are really important for us to see a large selection of, so that when we talk to other co-ops, or some of you in fact, we can share what we've learned from seeing other people's work. All right. What are we looking for here? How are we going to judge your applications? Well, legibility, I didn't put that on there. If we can't read it, chances are we're not going to think very highly of you. I haven't had too much trouble with that, though. So what we do need is that you do follow the requirements that we've laid out in the application, not just from this. You don't have to worry about remembering what we said here. The requirements that are important are all listed on that information pages that you'll get when you go to the application link. We're looking for good business planning. It's almost every new food co-op startup group has got a wonderful vision for what they want their co-op to be. They want to engage their community. They want to do good things in the community. They want to be helpful in improving the health and wellness of the community. These are great stuff. And yeah, we want to know that you're on board with that. We assume that most of you are. But good business planning isn't always a given, and so we're definitely looking to see that you've paid attention to that side of your planning as well. We want to see that you've not trying to do this whole thing on your own in an isolated environment. We'd love to see that you're working with other groups, professional guidance, other co-ops, finding you and using good resources. That's going to say that you are taking advantage of what is out there to help you, and not trying to reinvent the wheel, and that will be an advantage in your application. And we do want to fund co-ops that we think will be successful. How do we know whether you're going to be successful? Well, we can't tell for sure, of course, but things that often lead to success are strong leadership groups, very effective and efficient working groups, strong community support, and that community support we measure both by the member, how successful your member recruitment is, for considering, of course, how long you've been doing it, and other evidence of community support, perhaps partner organizations or projects that you've done in the community that show that you're being well received and the community is looking forward to having a new co-op. And realistic expectations. If I get for example, a financial projection that says you're going to make a 5% profit in your first year of business, I'm going to tell you that you've got to go back and rethink it, because there's not a co-op that's ever opened that's been able to do that I know of. So we're looking at things like that. If you've done good business planning, odds are that your expectations will be realistic. And finally, when it comes right down to it, if we've got 40 applications for 10 grants and 20 of them are really strong, we will look at how badly do you actually need this money, and how much will it benefit your organizing effort. Some groups, every group could use an extra $10,000. We know that. But some groups have benefited from strong member growth or a local grant or something. Other groups may be just scraping together that first $10,000 they need for a market study. We'll take into account where you're at and how much good getting an extra $10,000 would do for you. So implied in this, but not stated outright, and that's important to understand, there is a sweet spot in development. If you're just getting started, you've only started organizing, it's very difficult to judge a lot of these things, and you won't have any of the supplemental material ready yet, probably. And while we aren't going to rule that out, as a candidate, it's going to take a little more effort to show that you have a viable project and one that is likely to be strong. And on the other hand, if you are already approaching implementation, $10,000 at that stage of the game is probably not as beneficial as it would be earlier on. And again, it's nothing to say about not wanting to help you, and we will help you in other ways, but the money might not be as appropriate as it would be to a group that's somewhere in that middle area, or they've gone far enough to show good strength, but they still have a long ways to go and can really benefit from having some money for professional services. Okay. So if you are one of the award winners, we will ask you for some paperwork, because everything has to have paperwork, right? It's not too onerous, but we have an agreement that you will abide by the terms of the grant and things like that. We will explain our reimbursement process and provide you with forms and to request reimbursement. We don't give out the whole grant up front. We reimburse it as you spend the money. So if you had, for example, let's go back to the market study. If you had proposed a market study as one of your pieces of the grant, when you get an invoice for it, you would send a copy to us, and we would reimburse you for half of that, keeping the 50-50 match in place on a project-by-project basis. If that's confusing, I'll be happy to explain it in more detail, but that's essentially what we do. You can request a reimbursement as often as once a month for the expenses you've incurred. You need to provide documentation in the form of an invoice or receipt, and we will reimburse for half of what you've expended. We ask that you give us a monthly report on your progress. We'll give you, again, a form that will help you to format that, but it's not an extensive amount of reporting. We just want to know, how are things going? Are membership growing okay? Are you making progress on your other tasks that you've outlined for yourselves? And so on and so forth. We'll arrange with you at a time that works well for all of us to visit you at your location, and we can meet with your board, we can meet with members of the community, we can tour around the town and look at potential sites, we can sit down and talk about how to kickstart a membership campaign. These visits are the highlight of our work for us, because we get to actually meet and sit down and talk to people out there instead of just responding to email. And it really helps build a good relationship, and we can do a lot of good, I think. So that's a very important piece of what you get with this grant. At the end of the year, after you've spent your grant money, we would like to have a summary report. And all this reporting, you might ask, well, why? What are you doing with it? Well, we're doing two things. We're using the information to help improve what we offer, our resources, our support services, and so that we can provide even better in the future. And secondly, the people that fund our work need to know that we're being effective in our use of their money. So we report to them on the progress and the results of what we do, and that certainly includes the grant recipients. We do follow up with all of our grant recipients and all of the co-ops that we work with, for that matter, all of the startups. We continue to work with them all the way through the project, and we continue to try to document as much as we can for the same reasons we do the year-end report. And we like to even continue past the time you open so that we can talk to people in the future about, well, of the new startups that happened in the last 10 years, they've already generated this many jobs, this many members, this many dollars in sales. It's really important information for the rest of the world to continue supporting our work. I'm going to just pause here and remind you that if you have questions, you can email them to Mary at info@fci.coop. That's info, I-N-F-O, at F as in Frank, C as in cat, I as in income tax, .coop. No hyphen in co-op. info@fci.coop. All right. Let's see here. Okay, let's go on there, and you can start feeding questions at any time. If I've already covered them, we'll just skip them. But if you ask a question and then I cover it after that, not to worry. Oh, this slide that's one of the groups that had received an award, and a couple of pictures there. I think I'd meant to pull those out, but this is the Hub City in Spartanburg. Their plans for their co-op, and they're right now in the nearing implementation. I think they are in implementation technically, but they have a site. They're trying to raise the rest of their capital to start construction. Okay. We can go on to the next one then, if there is another one. Yes, questions and answers. That's it. So we got a couple already, and please don't be shy. Send those questions straight on to Mary at info@fci.coop, or if you're on the YouTube channel, there's a place there where you can post your comments, and there's a little bit of a lag time sometimes in those getting to us, but we'll do our best to catch them and respond as well. So one of the questions we've had is, if you went to the conference already this year, like the up-and-coming conference, or if you're going to CCMA, you've already planned to go, and would those be eligible for grant? The answer would be no. Next year's would be, but not this year's. We're assuming that falls under the category of it has to happen after you receive the grant. So let's plan that. And another question, if you're a group working with a school for a market study, would that be considered acceptable as a professional market study? Well, there's 2 points there. One is the school charging you? If they are, I would suggest you might consider going with somebody that specializes in consumer co-op market studies, and even though if it costs more, their knowledge of co-ops and co-op markets is going to make a huge difference. We have seen a lot of different market studies by a lot of different kinds of organizations, and frankly, the only ones that are really good are the ones done by professional organizations that specialize in market studies, and not just that, but market studies preferably for food co-ops. Second best, natural food and grocery stores. So if you need advice or more detail on that, contact us. We can recommend a couple of companies that we like. School groups and things like that, they can provide a lot of good sort of general research, more of the feasibility research that you might want, but I would not rely on them for a formal market study. Okay, and there's another question. If they're planning to incorporate as a nonprofit rather than a co-op, can you still apply for a seed grant? Again, there's 2 points to that one. Yes, you could, as long as you're operating as a co-op. If you, in some states, there are not co-op statutes, and so there's no opportunity to incorporate as a co-op. They may incorporate as a not-for-profit or as some other kind of organization, but if they have bylaws that clearly reflect that they're running their business as a cooperative, then they're all right. Now, when you say nonprofit, be aware that if you're thinking in terms of a charitable organization, a nonprofit, tax-exempt organization, very few co-ops can qualify for that, for the simple reason that you're a for-profit business, you're not a charity. So you might want to clarify that point as well. Reminding people once again, info@fci.coop. And let's see, what do we got next? If you get a grant and send a reimbursement request, we pay half, and the other half is from your matching funds. That is correct. So again, the example, you've got $10,000 grant. You're going to spend $400 or something like that on a CGN membership. You send us the copy of your receipt, and we'll send you $200. You go out and get your professional market study, and it costs $12,000, including travel and expenses. You send us the invoice, we send you $6,000. We keep track of how much we've sent you, and at the end of when you've spent all of your grant amount, we say, congratulations, thank you very much, and good luck, and we'll keep working with you. I hope that helps. For anybody that does get a grant, of course, we'll walk you through it and remind you of what you need to know as the time comes. So you don't have to necessarily have it all straight right now. Another question. We do not want to start membership drive until we know that a co-op is feasible. Is it realistic to apply for a grant? Yeah, that's a great question. One of the best ways to know whether a co-op is feasible is to see how many people in the community will actually make that commitment, and that's what membership is. I don't know how you would be comfortable saying you've got a feasible co-op without doing that. I mean, there's other things you can get. You can get a market study that shows what the potential revenue is. If you have a size store and get a sense of your expenses, you can probably do a very rough financial projection. But none of that makes any difference at all if you don't have enough owner members willing to join and support the co-op. So, yeah, it would be tough, but I mean, you could make it if you can make a strong enough argument that you're likely to be a good, strong project. As soon as you do start going after membership, we'll look at it. You might want to talk to us about your situation offline on that one. Here's a great question. If our plans fail, do we need to repay the grant? No, you do not need to repay the grant. If you haven't spent all of it, of course, we won't send you the rest of the money, but you will not have to repay what you have spent. And we haven't seen very many cases where this has happened, fortunately, one or two, but for the most part, the co-ops that are awarded grants are co-ops that are doing well enough that they don't fail during the time that they're organizing, and most of them don't fail afterward either when they're open. So our overall, just for interest, our tracking shows that nearly 75% of the co-ops that have opened in the last 10 years are still open. Some of them, of course, haven't been open very long, and some of them have been open 10 years. But that is a far higher success rate than other small businesses. So it's something that I think as co-ops we can be proud of, and actually it's something we can tell people that the risk is lower doing it our way than it might be doing it by another way. Sources and uses. Somebody wants to know how sure do they have to be about their numbers before they send it to us. You don't have to be. A sources and uses budget is intended to be a working document. You can theoretically you could fill out your first one a couple of months after you start organizing when somebody says, we want a co-op that looks kind of like that one, and that one is 5,000 square feet of retail space and 2,000 or 3,000 square feet in the back room. So we can plug those square footage numbers into this template, and it'll give us a ballpark number. And okay, that tells us something right there. We know what the cost of the project is, and if people are asking us, well, what's it going to take? We're going to have to raise $1.5 million to open this co-op, or whatever the number is. And the board also, or the steering committee, has that number in their heads too, so they kind of know what they're in for. And even if that's all you got out of it, that would be important. But you do get more than that, because it helps you think about how the money coming in will break down. How much of it realistically is coming from members joining? How much of it's coming from loans that the members will make to the co-op in the future? How much of it from a bank? How much of it from other sources like grants and fundraising efforts? And it also it breaks down the typical expenses of opening a co-op so that you can think about that as well. So the numbers aren't nearly as important in their exactness as it is that you've thought about how your budget's going to look and what it's going to take to achieve it. And every time you learn more about your project, every time you make a firm decision, or when you find a site, for example, then you'll update that sources and uses budget, and it'll become even more accurate. But it can keep changing right up to the day you open the store. It's not like a budget, an operating budget, where you keep the budget there to look at all year long without changing it, regardless of what your results are. This is different. And sources and uses budget is part of your planning and should move along with you. We have webinars and resources about sources and uses budget, which I would recommend. Those are in our webinar library, and you shouldn't have too much trouble finding them there, but ask us if you do. Okay. We want a retail store eventually, but are planning a buying club for 2 years beforehand. Should we wait to apply another year? Probably. It would depend on where you're at in your plans. If you're actually doing work for the retail store, you would be eligible. If you're not doing, if you're working on the buying club now, just to lay the groundwork and not really starting the organizing for the retail, I'd say hold off a little bit. Next question. Do you offer grants more than once a year, or just once a year in May? We offer them usually in May or June. The exact timing varies a little bit. and we do them most years. We are, as I said earlier, reliant on the money that comes into us through grants in order to be able to make these grants to you. We've about half of the money for this program comes from the USDA, and at least half of the grants that we make will go to co-ops that are in areas that are considered rural by the USDA. And their definition of rural is roughly communities under 50,000 that aren't adjacent to a metropolitan area. They have a little map that we can check you out on. You don't have to worry about that because there are grants available for both urban and rural co-ops. Other money for the program comes from a variety of different donors, and to the extent that we have enough in our budget, we have usually tried to set aside $100,000 a year for this program. There have been years when we did not have as much funding when we haven't been able to do that. So I can't tell you exactly what every year will bring. Our intent is to continue to do this, and hopefully we can do it every year. All right, boy, these questions are coming in fast. By the way, if you need to drop off, if the webinar is going on longer, I'll keep answering questions as long as they're coming in here, I think, within reason. But you will be able to see the recording later, and perhaps we'll be able to put together even a little question and answer document with the most common questions or the most important questions that we can then post to our website or send out on our email list. So in the meantime, let's get a few more. Can member equity be used as a match for the grant? Yes. Member equity is actually a great place to get your matching money. We don't need resumes for board members. That was a question. Just a short bio, and by bio, I mean if you've ever seen a conference program and there's a short paragraph telling you a little bit about the person that's doing the presentation, just something like that. If we use the grant to hire staff, how would we be reimbursed? Each month after we pay the salary or at the end of the grant? Assuming that we approve hiring staff, and for project management type positions, we generally have found that to be good. We would reimburse you no more than once a month, but it could be easily every month if you send us payroll reports or documentation, and we could reimburse you the 50% based on that. If you've started a project that would be covered in the grant, but it's not done within 12 months, is that okay? Say it's a 14-month project. I would say yes. What you should ask for in the grant in that case would be money to cover the part of the project that's going on during the 12 months. We can be somewhat flexible in that, but that would be ideal. Okay, what are the parameters for local investment? Could it be grants already secured, or does it have to be new money? No, it can be money you've already secured, and as long as it's a local grant, a local fundraising event you did, member equity, any of those kinds of things are fine. So, and it can be done anytime before the grant, before you use the grant money. So if you've already got it in the bank, great. If you don't quite have it in the bank, but you will soon, great. Oh, okay. What's the registration cost for up and coming conference? I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe Mary could find that quick and send me a note back. It's up and coming is a very reasonably priced conference. The registration is kept low. So the travel costs and lodging and food, a lot of food's included, would probably be your biggest expenses, and those could be part of what you request in the grant as well. Okay. Let's see. Is there a requirement of square footage for the retail storefront? Would a smaller store, say 5,000 square feet, be eligible? Absolutely. Um, the only time we would look at square footage and say maybe not is if it's so small that it impacts the likelihood that the store could be viable. Obviously, if you said you were opening a 20,000 square foot store and it didn't look like you had a kind of enough community support for a business of that size, that would be a problem too. But it's not basically because of the square footage, it's whether or not you can be viable. All right. Could you elaborate on the budget needed for up-and-coming conference? Okay, yes. The up-and-coming conference is always in Bloomington, Indiana. So you can base it on that. If it gets moved, there was some concern about the politics of Indiana and whether or not we'd want to keep the conference there, but at this time, at least, our intent is to keep it in Bloomington. And I think what I would suggest as far as budgeting for any of the conferences is to ballpark it. We're not going to hold you to an exact number. If you ballpark $1,000 to send 2 people, it only costs you $800. You can use that $200 that was left toward one of your other projects or some alternative that we work out together. You're not going to lose the money. And so that should be easy enough. If you had a seed grant before, can you apply again? Yes, you can. We do give priority to co-ops that haven't gotten them in the past. So if there are, more than 10 good candidates, good and eligible candidates, those that had previously gotten a grant would probably not get one again. If there, for some reason, we had a shortage of qualified candidates, then you'd be in the running. So it's kind of your call whether you want to invest the time into it, but at least theoretically, you could be eligible, or you are eligible, you could be successful. And let's see, to that, I don't think I have anything more to say about that one. I think I'm catching up here with the questions. Oh, here, another one. Oh, this is a good one. Can we bribe you with chocolate? Now, nobody's ever tried that. I don't know. It might work. No, it wouldn't. I can't say that because, when you're working with government funds, I'm pretty sure we're not allowed to take bribes. So thanks for the thought, though. Okay. Mary, we got anything else coming in? I don't think we've been able to find the exact number for... Oh, here we got it. Up and coming last year, it was about $275 for registration. That cost includes a day and a half of workshops with an option to come the day before and do some store tours or half-day workshops. And it includes most of the meals and a couple of and a reception during that time. So it's a heck of a good deal. And the lodging in Bloomington is reasonable. I think it's been in the $140, $150 range if you stay in the conference hotel. So as far as conferences go, it's one of the most affordable. And there's a discount if you send more than one person from your group. The more you send, there's a bit lower on the cost. It's just, I can't say enough good things about it. Here's the picture. This was taken at this year's conference, the We Can Do It theme. We had a lot of fun with posing in front of that sign. It's all training. It's all targeted at startup co-ops and those that have just opened. It's the best trainers that we can find. People from CDS Consulting, people from Food Co-op Initiative, case studies from some of the co-ops that have opened recently or are working toward opening and have a story to tell. There's just so many different things that go on there, including wonderful networking opportunities and chances to have one-on-one discussions with co-op professionals and advisors. So keep an eye out for that. Even if you don't get a grant, boy, I can't encourage you strongly enough to come to this conference. And Mary, who went for her first time this year, wants to add, we call it UCR, up and coming, up and running. It's, you know, there's so many of these acronyms in the co-op world, we need another one, right? So it's been nicknamed UCR for short. It was absolutely amazing and informative and fun. So that was from a first timer. All right, well, I think the questions have trickled in, and you have all the opportunity in the world to ask more. Send us an email. If something comes up while you're writing your grant, or when you think about it before that and you need help, we are here to help you with that process as well as with your organizing process. Think of this whole process of writing a grant as part of your planning. You're going to have to look at things that you are going to have to include in your business planning anyway, and this is going to just help your organizing team to focus in on where are the priorities and where are we at right now. So it's a kind of a homework exercise to help you, as well as hopefully for most of you that are listening today, a chance to actually get some money. Got one last question that just came in, and does the matching funds that need to be raised locally have to be raised after the grant is awarded? No, they do not. You can have the money in the bank right now. You can raise it now. In fact, I encourage you to use the grant application, like I said earlier, I think. Use that as leverage. Tell people we're applying for a $10,000 grant, but we have to raise $10,000 to match it. We need you to join now, or we need you to make a contribution now so that we can do this. In any case, you don't have to wait until you get the grant to raise the money. That's not our intention at all. All right, well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to reading some great applications. It's always a lot of fun to read through these things and see all the enthusiasm and great ideas and wonderful people that are out there in the world of new co-ops. So keep up the great work. Don't be strangers. And we're working on our next webinar right now. We'll have information about that coming out before long. Unfortunately, I haven't got a commitment yet for the presenter, so I can't announce it. But it's going to be a good one. And without any further ado, that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone.